A surprise to me, though, thus far, a lot of us have been waiting or putting the weight on the returns of the market based upon the anticipation of them cutting rates. And then Jerome Powell comes out and says, we're probably not going to cut rates, and the market goes up.
So from last quarter round or mid-quarter roundtable, which was mid-November, until now, market's done pretty well. Give you a couple of numbers. Dow's up about 12%. S&P's up 13. The NASDAQ's up about 13, closer to 14. Your international, your MSCI World is up about 8. And then even bonds have done better with rate yields coming down. So the ag's up 3%. Commodities are the only thing that's struggled, down about 3.5%. You're always going to have some push and pull. But year to date, again, so that was mid-November till now. Year to date, obviously we've got in first 2 months of the year. The Dow's up about close to 4. S&P getting close to 7%. NASDAQ about the same, right about 7%. And then your international is only at about 1. The ag has retreated a little bit. It's down about 2% for the year. And then commodities down about 1% for the year. So that's kind of where we stand, year to date and since the last roundtable.
It's pretty crazy, man. It's pretty resilient. I mean, everyone's waiting for the shoe to drop, waiting for these markets to correct, and they're not ready.
I think what was interesting about that too is if you remember the first half of the year, it was 6-7 stocks really driving the entire index. Where if you're looking at the S&P 500, it's up 17%. You look at the Dow, it's up like 4. And so we really had that last 2 months or so of the year, full participation across the board in the S&P, and getting a more of a balanced return out of both growth and value for that last bit of the year there.
A surprise to me, though, thus far, a lot of us have been waiting or putting the weight on the returns of the market based upon the anticipation of them cutting rates. And then Jerome Powell comes out and says, we're probably not going to cut rates, and the market goes up.
Yep.
So,
well, not that day.
Not that day. The next
you get
day,
a little hiccup, and then
it went down
wait
for
a minute.
24 hours.
Why are we walking away from these really, really profitable companies? Let's buy them back. And it's crazy.
And also, we keep waiting for some reversion to the mean that mega cap stocks and large tech stocks aren't going to keep driving everything, but they just continue, tech and growth, and it continues to drive it forward. It'll happen at some point, but it's interesting how Jason said for many times on here, the most anticipated recession that hasn't happened yet, and tech stocks and the mega cap stocks continue to drive the market forward.
Speaking of tech stocks, we've had an addition to one of the oldest indexes in the country, the Dow Jones. They don't add names to the 30 in the index very often, but the one they put in was Amazon. When did Amazon IPO? 15 years ago?
IPO? I'll look, but I think it was right around 2000, 2001, something like that.
And they're finally getting added. The stock's up 180,000%, and they just got added. So the Dow
That's
Jones.
all it takes? 180,000%, you get added?
I'm going to pull the chart up here.
May 15th, 97.
Shows the list of all the Dow stocks. And so some information for our listeners here. The Dow Jones and the S&P 500 are the two indexes that most of you hear mentioned on the news on a regular basis, and they're absolutely different. The Dow Jones, the older index, is a index of 30 stocks. Who selects these, by the way? You'd think I'd know that.
There's like a Dow committee, Dow S&P committee. No kidding.
No,
it's
one
behind
the curtain.
It's
we're
one
not
of the
really
biggest
sure,
jokes.
We're not really sure what they're going off of.
Or why.
The point is that why I think it's a big joke is everybody talks about it. Oh, it's an index, it's a basket, it's an unmanaged basket. No, it's definitely managed. They pop stocks in there in and out from time to time based on what? Based on the fact that a company IPO'd in 97 at 7 cents, and now it's whatever it is. And
for some reason, they're good enough.
Good time to put them in.
Well, without it, they couldn't keep up, so they had to add it.
Yeah, no, it's
so I'm going to pull that right back up. There's a couple things that I want to show on there that what makes these indexes so different. The index, and this might have made sense in 1905. Now it doesn't make a lot of sense. But what this index does, of the 30 stocks that are in there, they, rather than weighting them by the size of the company, they're weighting them by the price of the company, which is
price per share.
The price per share.
Yep.
Not even the market cap, but just what the ticker is trading at, meaning whether or not a company has decided to split or not will affect their weighting in the index. And so United Health, which is trading at $525 a share, actually has the largest weighting in the index, almost 9%, even though they're by no means the biggest company, because you can look at the biggest company in here is, well, let's take it like Apple. Being that Apple's only $180 a share, they're only halfway down the index. And so it's, I don't know, it's not the most accurate index in my opinion compared to something like the S&P that is actually weighted by size of the companies. This is just weighted based upon whether or not they decided to split.
Yeah, this is one of those we've always done it this way. So it's continued forever, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But, people have quoted the Dow for ages, so it just continues.
But you contrast that, too. You mentioned the S&P, and it's more just size-weighted. You look at the top 6 or 7 stocks in the S&P, there's 500 companies, and there's 6 or 7 make up 30% of the entire index. Right. So
well, and I get that, but I mean, you look at this index, and it's just kind of ironic that Caterpillar has a bigger influence on this market than Apple Computer. When you think of how many people that we know own a tractor versus an iPhone.
I guess it depends on where you're at in the country.